Good afternoon, guys. I hope you guys are having a good afternoon. We're going to talk about one of the problems. There's many, many different problems within the financial world right now it's more so, it's greater, it's bigger than it was in 2008. Everything's worse. Even though they're not talking about a lot of these things yet. During the last financial crisis, an awful lot of it was the real estate problems and the subprime mortgage crisis, where they bundled the mortgages together into bundles and sold them as AAA prime, when actually a lot of the people were subprime borrowers. They were borrowers who were not their credit rating wasn't that great or whatever. Well, that's going on again. They figured out a backdoor way of doing that, but they're doing a lot more now. One of the big problems within the financial system right now is the leveraged loan market is exploding. Honest to gosh. They're making these leveraged loans. I'm telling you, it's growing so fast. It's grown from $970 billion when the time this article was written. On February 8th, 2018, the article I'm going to read you was written. And now it's just a few months later, it's grown from $970 billion to $1.1 trillion. That fast it's growing, leveraged loans. Now, to make it even worse, most of those leveraged loans now are called covenant light. And what that means is it means that the borrowing conditions are much less restrictive. In other words, the people that are borrowing the money out to these guys who are borrowing this money, say, to buy another company, say they want a merger with another company, so they'll loan these guys the money, and they're making it covenant light. So these guys, they could go, honest to God, they could take the money and go out and build a swimming pool, or take a trip to Spain. With these covenant light loans. And it's much less restrictive of where the money is actually going. And the reporting back on where that money has went is much less restrictive on the covenant light loan. And so there's an awful lot, they can do an awful lot more with the money, an awful lot easier. Much less restrictive. And this is just blowing out, the whole thing's blowing out of proportion. So let's start the charts and take a look at this article right here about covenant-like credit and how it's dominating the leveraged loan market. And this leveraged loan market alone, I mean, it's growing. And another thing they're doing is they're actually doing the same thing what they did with the pre-mortgage, the crisis back in 2008, where they bundled the real estate mortgages together, and then they credited them all as AAA, doing the same thing with these leveraged loans, and it's a huge problem. It says covenant light loans is an issuer-friendly feature that allows less protection for lenders and investors than traditionally structured credits. They now account for a record 75% of the roughly 970. Now, that 970 billion is now 1.1 trillion. It's going up that quick. This is part of the money that's actually keeping our system going. But this money is just like a guy who's got a sieve full of holes, and he's holding a colander or a sieve that's full of holes, and he's trying to pour water. He's trying to hold water in the colander. Of course, it's going to run out all over the place. And that's the way with the money. This money's pouring in, and it's running out all over the place. And this is part of the money that's actually keeping our system going right now. But what do you think when this dries up? As interest rates rise, this money is going to dry up pretty soon. And then these creditors are going to come back for these loans. And where's the money? Everything's just going to dry up at once within the financial system. This is part of the problem. So we read on here. It says January is the 10th straight record month for the covenant light market share, as those credits remain the norm in a lending segment that has just completed a year of unprecedented issuance. In other words, they're making these loans out every which way. Willy-nilly. Here, you want a loan? Oh, you're going to buy an acquisition of some company. Oh, that's great. Here's the money. You know? It's just crazy. This is what happens when you get 10 years of zero interest rate policy. You get an enormous crack up in the economy that's coming. We're going to pay what we're going to pay, and what we're going to pay is going to happen very soon now. It's getting ready to happen. And who's going to pay for all of this? Who's going to pay for the jacuzzi baths and for the swimming pools shaped like a violin and for his weekend massage at the New York Massage whatever club, you know, that's the club that's like where he goes, you know, and he pays the girl $100,000 tip. Who's going to pay for all of this? These fat cats, these fat little porkers that have been doing this all along. Who's going to pay for it all? I'll tell you who's going to pay. The general average taxpayer. The middle class is going to pay for their garbage. And it's because we've had our nose stuck in these phones all day long. And we haven't been paying attention to what these crooks have been doing. They have been stealing us blind. Quite seriously. And so here, I mean, it's no sense me arguing about it because they've already stole all the money. Basically, this is scary. This is scary. $1.1 trillion. When you start to get into the ones that are named with a T, like trillion, not billion, but trillion, then you start getting into the kind of money that can bring this entire system down and basically cause chaos. So this is 1.1 trillion. It's just getting into that money range where it can cause a lot of problems. But there's other features within the economy that are also threatening to bring everything down at the same time. Anyway, this is what's going on with this. These covenant-like deals. It says covenant-like deals in some ways are structured akin to high-yield bonds. They feature inconcurrent covenants, meaning the issuer must meet financial tests only if he wants to take a particular action. Pay a dividend to a private equity owner, for instance. Fully covenanted loans, on the other hand, are far more restrictive. See, that's why they're going for these covenant light. Right? Covenant light means it's much less restrictive. That means that they can pilfer the money out because it's much less restrictive. Once they get approved, and these guys get approved because they're already fat cats. Basically, it's a bunch of fat cats passing money off to a bunch of different fat cats. And they all got a general plan. The general plan is to make all of us poor while they make all of themselves rich at the same time. Listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe. And there's just another thing we got to really watch out for. Covenant-like loans. And also these leveraged loan market. The leveraged loan market is exploding out of control. And it's all going to, well, just take a look. What happened to Bitcoin when Bitcoin exploded out of control? Up to $20,000. Didn't have to wait very long, did you, for it to fall? And that's the way with this. This leveraged loan market's exploding out of control. It's just going to go in the out. What goes up must come down, guys. Bye-bye, and we'll catch you in the next show.